Okay, students, so we're going to start with our online component on formal and informal writing. In academic writing, it's very important that you pay attention to formal and informal language usage. So think about what makes a better impression. Our person over here to the left or our person over here to the right? Well, obviously, I think you would agree that it's the person on the left here. As students, in your out-of-class writing assignments, you will need to write formally. So the following in this presentation are guidelines and examples for writing in a more academic style. This will give your future English teachers a better impression of your English language skills. And as your teacher, I will expect you to follow these guidelines. When informal writing is used in your assignments, I will circle the problems and just expect you to correct these problems on your next draft. So number one is avoid any informal language in your writing. So some examples of informal words include the following: things like junk, stupid, stuff, guy, or kid. So in English, we often refer to children as kids in informal speaking, but kids in English actually means baby goats, for example, whereas children would be considered more formal. So some examples of how to change your informal writing to formal writing is, if you need to, go look in a dictionary and see what the more formal term or synonym might be for the word that you're looking for. Guideline number two is you want to avoid using contractions. So a contraction is basically two words put together as one word with an apostrophe. We want to avoid using these in informal writing, even though these are very common in speaking, in text messages, in emails, etc. So in formal writing, just be sure that you use the full form of the word. So for example, they don't allow students to enter. In formal writing, this should be they do not allow students to enter. Another guideline is to avoid using you completely. Even words like we or us gets a little more informal and almost too direct for the reader, especially if you are actually referring to the reader himself or herself. So you can kind of see here what this might look like to an instructor when he or she sees you in a paper. So this is considered informal. So leave all references of you out of your formal writing. So instead of saying you should always stop at a stoplight, try to choose something else that's a little more indirect. For example, drivers should always stop at a stoplight. All right, guideline number 4, avoid using phrasal verbs. So for example, in this example here, in this cartoon, give up and surrender basically mean the same thing, but surrender is a much more formal usage of words or of language. So another example of this might be, she will find out more about registration. Instead, she will learn more about registration. So anytime you have a verb plus a preposition together, that's considered a phrasal verb, and that's considered informal. Think about using some other synonym or a more academic term. All right, guideline number 5. Definitely avoid using etc. and so on. So, for example, in this cartoon, this bookseller on the street says, "We sell newspapers, etc." And the customer there is wondering, well, what exactly is etc.? Just tell me what you sell. And the same is true in formal writing. Try to avoid using etc. and so on. Instead, what you want to do is actually list out what you want to say there. So instead of saying, I enjoy reading, etc. in my free time, you actually want to say, I enjoy reading, exercising, and watching movies, or whatever it is you want to continue to say. Our final guideline number 6, is avoid using abbreviations. So here are a couple of examples. In formal writing, she lives in Turlock, California, CA, period. This is an abbreviation. Avoid using these altogether and instead spell out the complete word. This goes for the United States of America. So instead of saying I live in the US in your writing, make sure you say I live in the United States. The only time you would abbreviate US is if you are using it as an adjective. For example, I have a US passport. That would be about the only time that you could abbreviate US. All right, so I think you are all ready for a quiz. What you want to do is go back to the online component and click on the quiz link and take the short quiz there, and this will go into your homework participation preparation grade. All right, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, just feel free to come see me before or after class, and I'll be happy to talk with you.